I have a bunch of TRS-80 Model 1 floppies from the late 1970s to the early 1980s that I want to copy to be able to use on an emulator. This video is going to show how to do that. My drives are set up as follows. My boot floppy is the top one labeled drive 0, the Gotek is labeled drive 1, and the data drive that I'm copying from will be drive 2. So we've got the boot, destination, and source. I have two types of floppies I'll need to be copying, TRS-DOS 2.3, which is the single density, and TRS-DOS 2.7, which is the double density, since I have the double density adapter installed in my expansion interface. The first thing we're going to need to do is create destination floppies for the Gotek FlashFloppy drive. I'll do that using the XHC floppy emulator program. We will need to create two types of floppies, a single density type and a double density type, and I'll walk you through the steps on how to do that. We now need to create our custom floppies. To do that, we bring up the HICALC floppy emulator tool, go to Floppy Image, Create Custom Floppy. It'll pop up this window here, and we need to change some of these settings from the defaults. First, we'll change it to MFM for track type, number of tracks 35, number of sides 1, sectors per track is 10, sector size is 256 bytes, and interleave, leave it at 1. Then we click Create Empty Floppy. Now that creates a floppy in memory in this tool, and we now need to export it. So to do that, you click the Export button, and it'll pop up this. You have these different types. Fortunately, the first one is the one you want, HFE file. And we'll go ahead and we'll create this in our single density file. And we'll call it new single density.hfe and click Save. Okay, we've now saved a basically blank single-sided floppy that we can use in the TRS-80 Model 1. So now we can see in our single density folder, we've got a file called new single density.hfe. That's the file we need to copy over to the USB. And you'll notice it's quite a bit larger than the actual TRS-80 floppy single density, which is about, I believe, somewhere around 80K-ish. Next, we need to create a double density blank floppy. We do the same type of thing, go to Floppy Image, Create Custom Floppy. It'll pop up this window, and we change some of the settings. Basically, sectors per track needs to become 18, and that's the only setting we're going to change. And then we do a Create Empty Floppy, and we'll need to export it. And in that case, we'll export it to the double density folder, and we're going to call it new double density.hfe and click Save and Replace. We bring up the Finder window, and we can see in the double density folder we have a new double density.hfe file. It's the same size as the single density file, which is interesting because there's more sectors in the double density one, but that's probably just how the HFE file structure is set up. Well, I decided to do the raw math here. Basically, single densities are 87.5K and double density is 157.5K. That's raw without any operating system or directory information or anything like that. That's just capacity of all the bytes that can be read or written to the disk. I copied the new single density and the new double density.hfe files into a subfolder called Gotek onto my USB drive. Okay, enough of the intro and setup. It's time to copy some floppies. All right, so I've got my setup here, and my first floppy is going to be this one, which basically is just a data disk. It will not boot, so we can show that by inserting it in my drive 0 and powering on the system. And you're going to see that it basically says no system. So in order to copy this floppy, that's why we need this second drive. Otherwise, you might be able to get by with just having two drives if each of the floppies you're going to copy from actually has a DOS, because then you could boot it here and then just copy from here to your Gotek FlashFloppy. But if you have a data disk, you can't boot it and it becomes more complicated. So we're going to go ahead, and we now have this floppy here, which has 2.3B TRS-DOS on it. So we're going to go ahead and insert that and then boot our system. All right, and that booted fine. And then we've got our data disk, the same one as before. We're going to put that in drive 2 and then do a dir on it. And we see we've got quite a few files, and that this thing is called Bass Games and has a date of 8/12/81. Now we have our USB, which I've already copied the data files to in the Gotek subfolder. So we'll go ahead and go back and then go back again. And then I have a lot of data on this thing. There's Gotek, and then there's our new single density drive. Now, if I were to try to do a dir on this, it would hang and give me an error because it's basically an unformatted floppy. There's no directory information or anything like that on there. So we're not going to go ahead and do that, but we're going to go ahead and run the backup command. So we'll just run backup. And what we're going to do is we're going to want to enter the source drive of 2, and then we're going to enter the destination drive of 1, which is the Gotek, and we'll go ahead and put today's date on there. It's now going to analyze things, and first found it that the drive was empty and is now formatting it. It'll be 35 tracks. If there was data on it, it would prompt me about overwriting because it saw data was there. Since it didn't see any data, it's going to go ahead and format it automatically. Then it's going to go ahead and verify that formatting. Probably speed this up in the video. And then you're going to see it's going to copy, and you can keep an eye on the LEDs. You're going to see when this one's being read, it turns red. And then when this one is writing, it's going to turn green and reading as well as it verifies. So you're going to see that go back and forth until all the tracks have been copied from the source drive 2 to the destination drive 1. Probably speed this up in the video as well. And then it finished. So if we do a dir of drive 1 now, we're going to see what's on the Gotek, and we're going to see that that's basically exactly the same as the other, with the date on the top being the date that I entered, versus drive 2, which we'll see the original source. And if we run the free command, that actually checks each floppy drive and gives a report. So we can see that drive 1 and 2 have the same label, Bass Games. The date is different because I entered the backup date as a later date, 35 files and 9 grams of space free. So that worked for the single density. So now we're going to repeat the same thing using double density disks. So first I'm going to show you I have this double density disk here. And basically this does not have TRS-DOS on it. It's a data disk only. And we can verify that by trying to boot off of it. Not a system disk. So I've got this other floppy here, which is a double density 2.7 disk, and it does have TRS-DOS. So we'll go ahead and boot it. And we can see we're loading TRS-DOS. This does take a bit longer than the 2.3 version, the single density version. It prompts me for the date. I will go ahead and enter today's date. Time doesn't really matter. And there we are. And we see we have 3 drives. And if I do a dir, we'll see a bunch of files on this disk, which is my DOS disk, which isn't really relevant for this, but there we go. And we're going to take this data disk, put it in drive 2, and then we're going to do a dir on that drive. And we're going to see that it's dated 6/18/83, and it's got these files on it. So our whole purpose again is to copy to the Gotek. So we go to the Gotek, and I see I've already got my 2 new double density HFE files selected, and we will run the same backup command. It's basically the same process. Source drive is 2, destination drive is 1. It wants the master password, which the default is always password. We'll do the quick, and it's going to figure it out, analyzing the drive 1, and it's going to tell me it's nothing on it and then start formatting it. And this will take a while. Speed this up in the video. You can see it's checking 18 tracks versus the other one, which is 0 through 9. This is 0 through 17. You can see there's more sectors here. There should be 18 sectors, 1 through 18. Now it's going to begin reading and copying. And it finished. So if we do a dir of the drive 1, the Gotek, we'll see all the files on there with the date of today. And that will be the same as drive 2, which was our source floppy, the same disk name, and the old date of 6/18/83, and the same set of files. The free command works differently on double density DOS, so it only really shows you the free space on a particular drive, and so it doesn't really show me the same thing, same types of information as the other one. But we now have the copy, and now that that's done, we can go ahead and take this USB stick and then put it back on our computer, and then we can access it using the emulator. All right, so I've copied the files from the USB onto my Mac into my folder called Gotek from USB. There's the files, and here's an actual boot TRS-DOS 2.8 HFE file that I obtained off of the internet. And I'm going to go ahead and run the command to load both of these up, and we'll do a dir to show that this is what the emulator actually sees, what we copied off of the actual TRS-80. So here's our DOS window booting up, and we'll enter today's date again. And again, time doesn't matter. So we're going to do a dir of drive 1, which is the single density floppy. And you can see these are the same files that were there. And dir 2 of the double density floppy. And those are the files off of that floppy. And just for fun, let's go ahead and look at our floppy number 1 and see what files are on there. And I see we have something called HICALC/BAS. Now, unfortunately, the way TRS-DOS 2.7 works is you can't directly run or load a program off of a 2.3 floppy onto a 2.7 booted system. So what you have to do is you end up having to copy that program, HICALC/BAS. You have to copy the HICALC/BAS from drive 1 to drive 0. Then we will be able to load it from BASIC. So then we go into BASIC, and we will go and load the HICALC program. And this is a cute little program. It's a high precision calculator. You have to remember that this system was an 8-bit system, so doing any kind of floating point math was, you didn't get a lot of bits, you didn't get a lot of decimal places, and there was a lot of rounding issues. So this is a nice program to be able to do that. We'll just show something simple. I'm going to go ahead and do a 1, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a division, and I'm going to divide it by 3. So we'll see what this represents as 1/3 and see how many precision of digits it's going to give. So we can see here we've got, wow, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 digits of precision. So you could do math with this and get a lot of precision with the 15 places, which is pretty impressive. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up here, but I just wanted to show you that this is possible. You can get files off of the floppies onto a Gotek USB and then bring them into the emulator and then run them there. And everything should work. I'll leave it for another video of how to get the individual files out of the .hfe files. and then you could be able to share them individually as opposed to a whole floppy disk. Thanks for watching, and please give it a like and subscribe. And feel free to watch one of my other videos here.